Right, London is calling. We have a massive title eliminator in the featherweight division. And you know me, I love title eliminator, boys. I think this is a fucking sick fight. And I'm quite happy with the card. I think the matchups could have been a little bit better with the names that they had here. But it's pretty decent so far. But before we get into it, Road to 5K has begun. I'm hitting like a wall with this content dilemma. I'm like, fuck, like I would like to be a little bit farther in on the content. So if you want to keep seeing videos, let me know. But Road to 5K, I'm not going to stop. I know I'm not going to stop. I love this shit too much. But hit the subscribe button, boys. At least comment that you like the videos or some shit to give me, just so I know people are watching. But anyway, Lerone Murphy versus Movsar Evloev is one of those fights where I first saw it announced or rumored a few months ago, and I thought, you know what? Movsar Evloev is going to just wet blanket Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy is very good, but he's very basic. He's kind of 7 out of 10 everywhere, but he doesn't have that thing like Movsar where he's an 8.5, 9 out of 10 in one area. And giving it more thought, I think the exact same thing. I think Movsar Evloev is going to wet blanket Lerone Murphy. I am confident Lerone will have the better of the striking, but I don't think Movsar is a chump on the feet either. But I just think Movsar's style is a bit like Muprhy. He's just gonna continuously pressure Lerone, and just it's over 5 rounds. I don't think Lerone is gonna be able to land some spinning shit because, let's be honest, boys, if we're being honest, Lerone Murphy never lands that against anyone good. He couldn't finish Josh Emmett. He couldn't finish Edson Barboza. Lerone Murphy's basic. Lerone Murphy's good. I'm high on Lerone Murphy. I've been on the Lerone Murphy train for fucking years, and I think this is actually a sick ass fucking main event, to be honest with you. I think this is a fucking sick main event. One second. Sorry, my fucking thing there fell. I think this is a sick main event. I love this main event. I think Lerone, I'm struggling to see where Lerone gets it done, because unless Lerone can knock him out, I don't see Lerone having the style to really chop Movsar at range, being able to nick rounds, being able to keep Movsar off him, keep him outside. Like, Movsar does his, a lot of good takedowns in the middle of the cage, which makes someone a really dangerous grappler. And I don't think Lerone, take out the Aaron Pico spinning elbow. Who the fuck has Lerone Murphy knocked out, boys? Who has he knocked out? And Aaron Pico has no wins in the UFC. He that was his UFC debut. I'm going with what I know in Movsar Evloev. High pressure grappler, very good. Good on his hands. Can work towards the back. One of the most boring fighters I've ever watched. I'm going to be at this fight. I'm going to hopefully get a ticket on Friday, because I love this card and I think this is a fucking sick. I think it's a fucking sick main event. I'm high on Lerone Murphy. I think Lerone Murphy's got extremely good striking. I like his movement. It's pretty crazy that Movsar still hasn't fought for a belt, but I saw something. He's had 20 scheduled UFC bouts and had like 11 of them cancelled or some shit like that. Like, there's no guarantees Movsar's going to make it to this fight, okay? There's no guarantees. But, hopefully Aljamain Sterling will be on backup or some shit like that. I desperately want Lerone Murphy to win this fight. Not only because I think Movsar is extremely fucking boring, but I just think Lerone's good for the sport. Now, this is like I said, this is a fucking sick fight. This is a sick fight. I love 2 undefeated. There's nothing I love more than a fight night main event title eliminator, because this is exactly it. Both of these boys, a lot of people said Lerone should have got the title shot over Diego Lopez. I mean, if you're going to give it to anyone, you probably would have gave it to Lerone, okay? Like, out of anyone, but nobody deserved it, okay? You don't get it off beating someone who doesn't have a win in the UFC. It's simple. Okay, this fight makes a shitload of sense. I love this fight. I love title eliminators. I just seeing how the UFC has been the last 2 years, and we don't ever get title eliminators because people don't want to fight each other. When I see 2 boys like this who are undefeated, putting it all on the line, because a loss for either of them sends them 2 years in the queue. 2 years. So losing is not an option for either of these guys. I think Lerone Murphy's good at range. I think Lerone Murphy has good hands. I just think Movsar Evloev's grappling is the best in the featherweight division. It's simple as that. As much as I saw Aaron Lallan kind of neutralize it, and he was clearly robbed in that fight, there were moments where Movsar was able to get to his back. There were moments where Movsar was able to kind of take him down. Now, I remember Lerone fought some Brazilian guy on short notice, and he was able to pick him up and dunk him. that was many, many years ago, and that was short notice. Lerone knows exactly what he's getting himself into when it comes to a fight like this, which is a heavy wrestling, heavy grappling approach. I just don't see it from Lerone striking. I don't see it from Lerone Murphy striking to be able to keep Movsar off him and be able to find the range. I feel like if you're fighting an Edson Barbosa and you're fighting a Josh Emmett, they're fine. Yeah, they're old strikers. Josh Emmett is literally just an overhand right merchant. But when it comes to Movsar Evloev, you're fighting an undefeated prime Russian wrestler who's the best in the division. And fucking fair fucking play to both of these boys for taking the fight. Even though I kind of feel like, you know, Volk was owed a fight like this, there was no one else. Yair Rodriguez fucking blew it. You know, him bitching and sitting out and crying. He should be cut from the UFC, to be honest with you. He's a fucking joke. At least these two boys had the balls. Movsar pulled out and Lerone Murphy stepped in to fight Aaron Pico. So they're kind of like meeting in the middle here to where, like, you pulled out, I took your spot. Still don't deserve it. You probably did deserve it, but you don't now. Let's see who's the better person. And I think Movsar Evloev is going to wet blanket him. I don't necessarily see him holding Lerone up against the cage much, even though I do think that can happen. It's a weird main event for London. I really didn't expect to see this. You're so used to the Edwards and the Aspinalls and stuff like that. You're so used to seeing them headline the cards. To see Lerone Murphy get a shot against someone like Movsar, it's great. It's great. And I love these fights. I love this fight in particular. I think this is a sick matchup. It's not going to be the most entertaining fight, but at least we'll have clarity. I love knowing who's next. That's my thing. I love looking at a division. I love this, knowing, okay, champ, you know, Volk just beat Lopez. This fight was going to happen. Like, it was 99% confirmed. And now that we have it here, it's sick. We know who's next. You know, when Movsar wins or when Lerone wins, we're going to be able to sit here and say, right, Movsar versus Volk, going to take place during the summer. I love knowing who and when that's next. And I think Lerone versus Volk is a sick fight. I think Movsar versus Volk, it's not necessarily a sick fight. I think Volk beats them both. I think Volk pieces the fuck out of Movsar. I think he outclasses Lerone on the feet. I don't think either of them are going to get to Volk, like, as regards give Volk like a real challenge, I should say. Give Volk a real test and really challenge Volk. Simply because I just think Volk is way ahead of these guys. I think he's way ahead of Yair Rodriguez. I think he's way ahead of Lerone Murphy. I think he's way ahead of Aljamain Sterling. I think he's way ahead of Movsar Evloev. Volk is still the best featherweight in the world. Volk is a top 3 fighter of all time. And you know, as much as I think this is a sick fight, and I'm fucking here for it. Okay, I'm fucking here for it. It is a little bit like, I won't say it's as bad as the Hamzat middleweight division situation, because the Hamzat middleweight, you know, situation is kind of just like, there's literally nobody that can beat this guy. At least Volk is a bit chinny. At least Volk is that bit older. Now, I think Gene Silva versus Yair makes a lot of sense, and maybe do Diego Lopez versus Aljamain Sterling. You can kind of mix and match those however you want, but they're kind of the ones that literally just sprung to my head. But my biggest fear in this fight is that Movsar kind of gets Lerone down early, and he kind of gets it in his head that he's able to take Lerone down. Very interesting to see Lerone with the leg kicks. I think the leg kicks are going to be a massive one, because Lerone's movement is quite like, he's quite like mellow with it. He doesn't, you know how Arnold Lallen bounces back and forth? Lerone is much more kind of mellow. He's in like this flow of moving. He kind of moves with the flow. That might create problems for Movsar when it comes to low kicks, because a lot of wrestlers will gladly let you kick their leg in the hopes that they catch it. But Lerone's striking's good. It's just, if Lerone can keep this standing and nick rounds, I don't see him. I'm not counting on a spinning elbow, okay? I'm fucking sorry. You shouldn't be either. You should not be counting on Lerone Murphy to spinning elbow Movsar Evloev, because it's just probably not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. And for the rest of the card, I think this is a pretty good main event. Okay, Luke Riley. I've been watching Luke Riley for fucking years, and he had one of the best fights ever in Cage Warriors history. I can't remember who he was against, but he's fighting Michael Aswell. MVP versus Sad Patterson. Felt like they kind of fucked the matchmaking up there a little bit. You know, he just beat Jared Cannonier. Why don't you give him a Gilbert Burns? Why don't you give him a Neil Magny? Why don't you give him someone like that? You know what I mean? Why not give him someone actually pretty decent? I get Sam Patterson is English and stuff like that, and it's, you know, whatever, but I feel like they could have match-made MVP just that little bit better. You know, they could have put him up against that little bit better of an opponent. But it is what it is. Roman Dolidze versus Christian Leroy Duncan is a good scrap. I like that fight. I think that's going to be a good striking fight. I think Duncan's going to get that one done. I think Duncan's a little bit too slick on the feet. I think he's just going to be able to find the range a little bit better. I'm talking like Eminem and Sabalabalam. Rap God or some shit. I feel like Duncan's going to be able to get that one done. I feel like he's going to be able to find the range. Roman Dolidze he's very, very limited. It's going to be cool to see Duncan get back in the rankings. You know, Dolidze's 11. Shows how trash the middleweight division is. Curtis Campbell versus Danny Silva. No one really cares. But, like, even, like, you look at the prelims here. The prelims are nearly better than the main card, in my opinion. You know, you have Shamrock. He's the Grappler. I'm an elite Grappler. You have Shamrock. You have Nathaniel Wood. Somehow is just still on the prelims. Like, I feel like Nathaniel Wood is actually the biggest waste of potential I think I've ever seen. He's up there with, not Darren Till, but he's actually and he's fighting someone in his UFC debut. I have just been saying the same fucking thing about Nathaniel Wood this whole time, which is just really fucking talented, really gifted, but just isn't progressing. He's not progressing past Abu Dhabi or England. Now, I don't know what the story is with that, because he just fights in Abu Dhabi or England. Like, they just need this guy for the fucking, you know, fight night cards in London. But you have the Shamrocks, you have the Luke Rileys for that. I don't fucking get why Lachlan Kavanagh's not on this. I've been watching Loney Kavanagh now for fucking 6 years. I've been watching him since he was an amateur, which is pretty. I watched him in the Cage Warriors Academy, I think it was, or some shit like that, but it's pretty insane. But, like, Loney Kavanagh's on, like, a week or two before this. He's fighting, like, Charles Johnson or some shit. Why? Why aren't you putting Loney Kavanagh on this as a co-main event against, like, a Mateus Nikolai? Some shit like that. Or, fuck it, like, even, like, a fucking... Royval just got knocked out, but... Any of these guys, any of these top dogs. Why isn't Loney Kavanagh? Why don't you try Bill Loney Kavanagh on this card? It does kind of feel like a bit of a top-heavy main event. I get Michael Page is on the card. I get Luke Riley's on the card. But it's a weak enough main card. It's weak enough. It's very top-heavy. Kind of... The main driving and selling point of this is the winner of this fight is going to be next for Volkanovski. That's kind of like... You can see this card and you can... You know, that's kind of like the outcome here. The London cards haven't slapped in a good few years. It was like maybe 3.5 years before I saw a decent London card. Because like they had like the Manchester one, and that didn't count as a fight night. So obviously it didn't count as a fight night. I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. The March fight night, what usually happens in the UK, didn't happen because they were bringing a massive pay-per-view to Manchester then. It's pretty crazy to see Lerone Murphy in a number one contender fight, because as much as I really liked Lerone, I always kind of thought he hit his ceiling, and I feel like this is that ceiling with Movsar. I just think this is such a sick fight. Like, I love this fight. But I'm looking forward to it. And we also have Mason Jones as well on the prelims. Mason Jones, good to see him. It would have been cool to see like a Vichenek or a Hardwick on this card. I feel like it was absolutely crying out for that. But Shem Show is here. Apart from that, you know, Mick Parkin as well. Excuse me. It's a good card. Like, I give it a solid 6.5, 7. 6.5, I'd say. You're just missing, like, the opponents. Like, Luke Riley versus a bigger featherweight would have been a cool fight. Michael Page versus Gilbert Burns would have been a sick fight. Loney Kavanagh versus Mateus Nikolai on this fight would have been sick. Would have been sick. It would have been sick, bro. And, like, that's a pretty decent fight. I'm not mad at Roman Dolidze versus Duncan or Curtis Campbell versus Danny Silva. You could have stacked this to the brim. I don't think we're ever going to get a better fight night than the Tom Aspinall versus Volkov fight night. I've said that's the greatest fight night in UFC history. It was just absolutely insane. That card was insane. But boys, let me know what you think down below of this card. Thanks for watching.